The next series of slides are for those of you that are used to using reports in BDL. You're used to writing your report formatting inside of the report block. And now we're going to answer some of the common questions you have. How do I skip to the top of a page? How do I deal with before group of and after group of on every row? How do I deal with spaces and formatting strings? How do I print out? How do I do on last row? How do I handle needs and lines? This is in your documentation as well, and we'll walk through some of this in the next few slides. One of the first tips that we can give you is how you can name variables using the printx statement. Now, if you were used to using General Report Writer from the very beginning, we always used to use printx statements. You don't need to use printx statements anymore. However, you can use printx statements if you want to provide a prefix for a variable as it's going to appear inside of the data view. So here we have define AABB as integer. If on my print statement, I could have just said print AABB. It would show up as AABB. But if I want to give it a preface, I can go ahead and say print name equal test space, and then the list of variables that I want to apply this prefix to. And then inside of my data view, you're going to see it prefixes it with, in this case, test.aa, and then we have test.bb. So the name attribute is going to assign a meaningful prefix to a variable. And when if you're using printx and you're trying to decide of the name, you need to think about what makes sense to the report designer. You're going to want to remove a majority of the layout syntax because you're going to be building 4RP reports. And inside of the 4RP reports is where you're going to specify things like column headers, specify how page breaks happens. So you're going to remove layout syntax, and for example here, skip to top of page will go, need end lines will go, print column and then the column offset or print X spaces, that all goes away. Instead, you're going to be designing it by dragging and dropping onto the report design document. Print page number is going to go away as we have our page number box. Print line number will go away. Again, remember that your formatting is happening inside of your 4RP file going forward, rather than happening inside of the report block itself. You'll want to remove your page header and page trailer. You can keep the first page header. There are maybe things you want to send across prior to actually handling the data itself, but things to look out for. So instead of page header, print x.customer number, x.customer name, and then before group of x.customer number, skip to top of page. Instead, you're probably going to change that so it says before group of x.customer number, print x.customer number and x.customer name. And then inside of the report itself, you would set it up so that it had page breaks on the customer group, and then you would have the variables x.customer number and x.customer name available for use. You're going to be removing all of the static prints. So all of your static prints, all of your printing of text that's not driven by data is going to be happening in your design document. There's no need to send it over in the data stream itself. So anywhere that you have something, for example here, if so wholesale, then print column 1, anywhere that you're printing out text, you're going to take that away. You may need to send over some information that the report designer needs to do things like decide column headings. In this case, it depended on whether this wholesale function was true. Well, just set up a flag, pass over that flag, and have the report respond to that flag. But in general, anywhere that you have hard-coded text, you're going to be taking that out of your report block because you're going to be implementing it inside of Form Designer directly. It's recommended that you use order external in your report. We've mentioned this in earlier modules. And you're going to want to keep order external so that we know that the data is coming in a specific order when it hits the report. Something else we recommend is that you print fields and not expressions. So don't send across a print of group of sum of x.qty. This is not going to appear as a known variable in the data view. So instead, you're going to let the total quantity equal to group of sum of x.quantity, and then you're going to print total quantity. This way, inside of my data view, I'll see a variable named, or a field item named total quantity that I can include on my report. The goal is to give names that make sense to our report designer. We want to use the power of the BDL as much as we can prior to getting to a report. So do your calculations before sending your data to the report, and then send as much data as possible. So for example here, don't do if DAX inclusive pricing, I'm going to send across the exclusive tax plus the tax, otherwise just the exclusive tax. What we probably want to do is create a variable that figures out this tax including flag. Then we want to let the price equal to the price times the exclusive price, and then send across all that information in one row. This gives the report designer the flexibility to take this data in its different state and use it as best fits the report itself. We want to avoid having any sort of complexity in our data view. We want to know that the data is going to be there, so avoid having prints inside of if statements, for each statements, or while blocks. So you want to avoid things like for I equal to 1 to 10, I'm going to print out a variable. You're going to want to avoid things like if okay, then I want to print X. This is just a general guideline. However, note that this is a guideline. There could exist valid reasons why you may need to print within one of these blocks. However, if you can avoid it, you should. Now, when you created ASCII reports, you probably use statements such as skip to top of page and needs X lines. When you skip to top of page, it instructs the runner to fill up the rest of the page with blanks and start a new page. When you said need X lines, you're saying I need a certain amount of lines remaining on the current page, otherwise I want you to skip to the top of the page. Well, how would you represent these inside of Report Writer? A literal solution is to use this concept of rest. So if I have a word box and I set the Y size property to rest, it's going to use up the rest of the page. If I want to make its height conditional based on a value, I would use my conditional statement. Here we're saying for the Y size, if the rest of the area is greater than 3 centimeters, I want you to use 0, otherwise use rest. So we're judging how much space we have to determine what we're going to set that Y size to. The next one, if my rest is greater than the length of an M space times 2, I want to set it to 0, otherwise I'm going to set it to rest. So this is the closest equivalent we have to the lines concept, where lines are here now a variable height based upon the fonts used. Another solution is to use this concept of the mini-page object. So a page root can be made as a child of a group node. So in this example, I have the page root as a child of store num. This means every time my store number changes, that's when I'm going to get a new page. That's when the page root is going to occur again. You can also make mini pages as childs of group nodes, and then depending upon the size of this mini page, it may also cause to start of a new page, especially if the group's contents don't fit in the space remaining. So what about a specific example of the needs solution? So in the Gennaro ASCII report, you may have written on every row I need to have 3 lines, and I'm going to print line 1, line 2, and line 3. What do I do inside of Report Designer for this? The main thing is to group objects in a simple layout node. A simple layout node will never be printed across 2 pages. So in this case, if I have my box order header and then I have the list of items I want inside of it, it's going to force that box order header to all be on one page. So instead of telling how many lines I need and then filling them out, here I'm just basically kind of reserving a box. And I need everything that fits in that box to fit on that page. And if it doesn't fit on that page, it will then push it off to the next page.